Hello friends, Dr. J from Dr. J Does Stuff, and today we're going to talk about a little bit of a controversial subject. It's must you be able to speak English in order to be able to pass a DOT medical exam? A lot of drivers, probably 50% honestly, of the 17,000 exams I've done are Hispanic, and they are absolutely my favorite patients of all time. Always polite, always compliant, and trying to do all the right things. They really value their commercial driver's license. Not that everybody else doesn't, but there's just a different spirit about my Hispanic patients, and I love them. But I've seen folks, that are born here, speak the language just fine. I've had exams for people that have come from all over the world. There's Russian people, there's Ukraine people, there's people from the UK, people from Africa. They come here to America and they want to have a good paying job, and being a truck driver can be a pretty good paying job, especially if you're willing to be away from home and long haul and go long distances and so on. But you have to be able to speak and understand English. That rule came into play when I renewed my 10-year license a couple years ago. That was actually a question on the exam. The driver comes in, blood pressure's fine, vision's fine, everything's fine, but they can't speak English. And the answer, there's only four answers. One is certify them for 2 years, certify them for 1 year, disqualify them, or determination pending. Which of those four answers, the determination pending means that I just don't have enough information. Maybe you have to go get a letter from your doctor and come back or something. But in that case, the right answer was DQ, is disqualify. So when a patient comes in, or a driver rather comes in, and they usually will bring somebody with them, because their job is on the line. They want to pass. They're nervous, but you can almost always tell when this is the case. So they come in and somebody comes with them. So maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a son or daughter, and that's usually the first clue. So I'll look straight at the driver and I'll say, what day is it today? And then they immediately look over at I say, you gotta talk to me. What day is it today? And sometimes their friend will shoot the answer out, and I say, okay, you have to leave. You can't be in here anymore, go. And then I'll go back to the driver and say, what day is it today? And if they just look at me with a blank stare, and I'll say, who's the president of the United States? Nothing. They truly don't understand English. So I'll go out, get the friend, bring him in, say, well, he's not going to be able to pass because, here's the reason why. It's a federal rule, and I, in my license, are bound to follow the federal rules created by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and that is a rule. In fact, it's been a rule for a while. It's just not been enforced, but with the current administration, it's being enforced, and I think that that's a good thing. And I'm not making a political statement one way or the other, but let me explain. So let's say that a driver can't read English. They're driving an 80,000-pound semi down the road with 200 gallons of gas. That makes it a bomb. And the sign says, crash ahead, slow down. And you can't read it. You're going to kill somebody, right? And the very next thing that's going to happen is the DOT does an investigation. Okay, was the crash a mechanical error, driver error, or was it something medical? And they'll come back to the paperwork, and they'll discover that I broke the rules, and now I'm responsible for everything in that accident because I let the driver back on the road knowing full well they couldn't read a sign. And one of the weird things is that in the state that I live in, you can go to the DMV with an interpreter and get a license. But that's a state rule. We're talking federal. We're talking obviously the federal government and the DOT rules and crossing state lines. Federal rules apply. And when you come in for your DOT exam, you have to be able to understand and talk to me, just the same as you would be talking to a police officer or you'd be talking to a state patrol, say at a way station. You have to be able to speak and understand the questions that are being asked and be able to answer those questions to that person in law enforcement. So what I'll do is, if the person can speak English, but it's broken, but they understand, right? What day is it today? It's Wednesday. Who's the president? Trump. Okay, you clearly understand me. Now you got to prove to me that you can read. So I write down, the cat in the hat came back. And then I say, read that to me. And if they can't read it, they can't pass. Same thing. If you can't read the street signs, if you can't read emergency signs, then you're not going to be safe out on the road. For anybody who's watching this, you may not be a commercial driver, but you are beside commercial vehicles all the time. Some of them aren't as big as semis, but a lot of them are. And it's important that everybody, including the driver, stays safe and comes home alive. So that's the purpose of that rule, because we don't live, like in Canada, it's bilingual, but here in America, it's one language, it's English. And everything's in English. Signs are in English. Emergency signs are in English, instructions are in English. As it applies to a CDL, you have to be able to read and write and understand English in order to be able to pass. And like I said, years ago, that wasn't the case, but it's been the case for a while. It's just not been enforced. But now they're leaning on us as CDL examiners to, figure this out, make this determination. Now, to be fair to, and this example just happens to be a lot of my Hispanic drivers, but I've seen it happen with other too. They'll say no English, or they'll say I don't speak English, and they actually can understand you. They just don't maybe speak it well, and they're embarrassed, or maybe they've been made fun of somewhere in the past, so they just default to, I know English, I don't speak English. But when I ask them questions, they understand, right? So I try my best to not be just clear cut and binary about it. Let me work with you. If you understand me, I don't care that your English is broken or has an accent. That has nothing to do with this exam. But if you understand me, I'll ask you questions. If you understand me, then fine. We've passed that. And sometimes, especially with the eye chart, they can read it and they understand what it means. But I'll say to them, you can say it in Spanish if you want, because they still have to be able to read the letters and understand what the letters are. And then I'll have them read it backwards to make sure they didn't memorize it. But that makes them feel a little more comfortable. And I've had to learn, I can't speak. I admire people so much that can speak foreign languages, but I can speak Southern, I can speak profanity, and I can speak English, just not very well. So I guess I do speak other languages, but try to make the driver feel comfortable, make them feel welcome, work with them. They're nervous as hell, just as it is, because again, it's their job on the line, right? If they don't pass this, they don't keep their CDL, and how are they going to feed their families? In a lot of cases, this is the only skill the driver has. So, we try to be kind and try to show some grace within the context of the exam, but you still have to be able to speak, read, and write in English to be able to pass and move forward. So there we go. I know for some people that's a sensitive topic. I try my best to be kind and encouraging to everybody. Still have to hold the standards, but there's no reason to be a jerk about it. You can make people feel welcome and make them feel comfortable. And oftentimes I find that somebody, they say, I don't know English, or I don't speak, or something. And then when you work with them a little bit and the whole room softens, and all of a sudden they do. They actually can speak, English. It's just not very well. So as a DOT examiner, it doesn't hurt to just take a moment, take a beat, and try to work with them and truly see if they can or if they can't. If they can, they can read, write, and understand English and get along, even if it's slow, even if it takes them a second to process it, then they're going to pass that particular standard with the exam. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, hit that bell, future notifications. That helps us support the channel. and grow the channel, so that we can continue to provide this content. Everybody be safe out there.